It all started when Jem broke his arm. That's what everyone remembers. But what if I told you that what led to it wasn't a fall or a game, but something far more sinister, something rooted in hate, silence, and injustice? A sleepy southern town, a mysterious neighbor no one sees, a courtroom where truth is on trial, and a young girl watching it all unfold through innocent eyes. This isn't just a story about childhood. It's a story about what happens when morality collides with a deeply broken society. Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird isn't just a classic, it's a wake-up call. And today, we're breaking it down chapter by chapter. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Book Podcast Zone. I'm Emma, your guide through today's deep dive into a truly monumental work of literature.
And I'm John, ready to unpack some incredible insights with you as we explore the layers of Maycomb, Alabama. Our mission today really is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from Harper Lee's timeless classic. We're kind of offering you a shortcut, I suppose, to being well-informed about its enduring themes, the historical context that shaped it, and, well, why it remains so relevant, all tailored for your curiosity.
Okay, let's dive right into part one then, kicking off with chapter one, the introduction to Maycomb and the Finch family. So this is where we first meet Scout Finch, Jean-Louise. She's our narrator looking back. And she's in this, seemingly quiet town, Maycomb, Alabama, right smack in the middle of the Great Depression. She's, 6 years old, a real Spitfire tomboy living with her older brother, Jem, and their dad, Atticus. He's this principled lawyer. His quiet integrity becomes, everything, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the moral backbone.
Right. And the chapter quickly sets up their family history, Finch's Landing, all that. But the real spark, I think, is when Dill Harris arrives.
Dill, yeah.
And together, the three of them just become completely obsessed with their neighbor, Boo Radley, this total recluse shrouded in all these terrifying local myths. And the chapter ends, famously, with Dill daring Jem to actually go up and touch the Radley house. Sets the stage immediately. Curiosity, mystery, a bit of that childhood recklessness.
Yeah, and what's striking right away, I think, beyond just setting the scene, is how Lee uses Scout's voice, her perspective. It's so subtle, but it's already a critique, isn't it? A critique of how communities rooted in this fear of the unknown can end up, perpetuating misunderstanding and injustice.
That fascination with Boo Radley, it's more than just kids being curious.
Exactly. It's not just innocent curiosity. It's this profound lens into how people fill in the blanks with prejudice, with rumor, when they're faced with someone different. And Boo becomes a symbol of unfounded fear, which is, crucial for what comes later in the book.
And Maycomb itself, tired, slow-moving.
Yeah, that description is perfect. It's a metaphor for that societal stagnation, especially in attitudes and biases. It feels stuck. And you really have to place this firmly in the 1930s. The Great Depression is just looming over everything.
You feel the economic hardship, right, in the descriptions.
You absolutely do. The town looks worn out, life is slow, people are struggling, and just beneath that surface you have the Jim Crow era. Those rigid racial and social hierarchies are silently, powerfully shaping every single interaction, even before the main conflict really surfaces.
It's always there.
Always. And think about how these myths, this fear of unseen figures, still spread today. Modern urban legends. Or think about how quickly misinformation goes viral on social media.
Like that Momo challenge hoax a few years back. That spread like wildfire.
Exactly like that. It's the same mechanism, isn't it? The fear of an unknown figure spreading rapidly. It echoes how those wild stories about Boo took hold in Maycomb. It just shows how we humans tend to create narratives around what we don't understand, sometimes with real consequences. It's that fear of the other.
It really makes you stop and think about how often our curiosity, maybe even our collective fear, is driven by just misunderstanding, especially when we don't look beyond the surface, Okay, let's take a quick pause here. Just a reminder. Like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue right on to the next chapter. All right, moving into chapter 2. And Scout immediately gets thrown into a whole new world, her first day of school, and it doesn't exactly go smoothly, does it?
Not at all. Poor Scout.
She clashes right away with her teacher, Miss Caroline, who's, she's not happy that Scout can already read and write. Skills Atticus taught her, just naturally, not in some rigid classroom way.
Right, outside the system.
And worse, Miss Caroline just completely fails to understand Maycomb's intricate social structure, the economics of it all. We see it so clearly when she tries to give Walter Cunningham lunch money, and she just doesn't get the Cunningham-specific kind of, dignified poverty.
It's a great way to put it. Dignified poverty.
Scout tries to explain, but she ends up getting punished for it, which just highlights her frustration with this formal education system that seems totally disconnected from how people actually live in Maycomb.
You really nailed something crucial there. This chapter, it's so much more than just, first-day jitters. It's Lee's really sharp commentary on education itself and those glaring class differences.
The contrast is stark.
It is. Scout's literacy, developed at home, versus Miss Caroline's rigid, kind of one-size-fits-all curriculum.
Yep.
It immediately makes you question the whole point of a standardized system that actually seems to penalize learning that happens outside its walls. And Walter Cunningham's situation and Miss Caroline's total inability to grasp it really throws a spotlight on Maycomb's deep economic divides.
That detail about them not taking charity, paying back debts with goods.
Exactly. Miss Caroline completely misses that nuance. It just reveals how superficial her understanding of the town really is. And historically, you have to remember, education in the rural South in the 1930s, especially for poorer families, it was a privilege. It wasn't a guarantee.
Right. Kids were needed on the farm.
Absolutely. Families like the Cunninghams often needed their kids for farm labor, so regular school attendance was a huge challenge, maybe impossible. Miss Caroline, coming from, well, probably a more affluent background, she just lacks the context.
And that tension, it still feels relevant.
Oh, profoundly relevant.
Yeah.
Think about the debates we're still having today in the U.S. education system. Standardized testing versus, say, personalized learning models. We're still wrestling with how to create schools that actually serve diverse students and acknowledge their backgrounds instead of just forcing everyone into the same box. It's that timeless challenge, isn't it? Bridging the gap between the system and real life.
It really makes you consider what happens when these formal systems, no matter how well-meaning they might seem on paper, just collide with the messy, complicated, sometimes harsh realities of people's actual lives.
Okay, before we get to Scout's next big lesson, just a quick reminder. Like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll keep this deep dive rolling. And that brings us to Chapter 3. This is, I think, a really pivotal chapter where Scout starts learning these huge lessons about empathy and understanding. She's still frustrated from school, takes it out on Walter Cunningham, but Jem steps in, her older brother.
Good old Jem.
Yeah, he invites Walter home for lunch, which is, unexpectedly kind. And at home, Scout's just shocked by Walter's table manners, pouring syrup all over his food.
The classic moment.
But Atticus treats Walter with total respect, talks to him like an equal, sets such a powerful example. And then it's Calpurnia, their housekeeper strong, no-nonsense Calpurnia.
She doesn't mess around. No. She gives Scout this sharp scolding for judging Walter, just drills home that lesson about empathy. And then, back at school, Miss Caroline freaks out over a cootie lice in Burris Ewell's hair.
Ah, the Ewells. Enter the Ewells.
Right, and this little incident reveals the extreme poverty and neglect of the Ewell family. And that's what leads Atticus later to explain to Scout that crucial idea of walking in someone else's shoes, considering things from their perspective before judging.
You're right. This chapter really is the moral compass, isn't it, for the early part of the novel. Lee uses it to cement empathy as the central theme, with Calpurnia and Atticus as Scout's key moral guides. And introducing the Ewells here is so significant. They're presented as the absolute social outcasts, living in squalor, flouting rules, embodying this kind of moral decay.
Such a contrast to the Cunninghams.
A stark contrast. The Cunninghams, despite their poverty, have dignity, integrity. The Ewells, well, they highlight the really complex, sometimes contradictory social fabric of Maycomb. Atticus even explains why they get certain exceptions. And historically, the Ewells represent that specific group in the 1930s South, the poor white class. They lived in terrible poverty, looked down on by wealthier whites, but crucially, they still held racial privilege over black residents because of Jim Crow.
So even at the bottom, there was another bottom.
Exactly. And that complex position allowed them to act with a certain impunity, like their neglect and dishonesty, while still being considered above black citizens. It's deeply uncomfortable. But Atticus's lesson, that timeless walking in someone else's shoes, it still resonates so powerfully today, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It lines up perfectly with modern empathy initiatives, community programs trying to foster understanding between different groups, or global campaigns promoting cross-cultural dialogue, like those empathy in action campaigns you hear about. They're all trying to do the same thing. Bridge divides by encouraging people to genuinely try to see another person's viewpoint instead of just judging based on assumptions. It's fundamental for a more compassionate world.
It's really amazing how those early lessons in empathy from people like Calpurnia and Atticus can just fundamentally shape your whole understanding of the world going forward. Okay, as we get ready to uncover more mysteries surrounding Boo Radley, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our journey into Maycomb. Chapter 4 takes us right back to that Boo Radley mystery, but now it's mixed with some classic childhood adventures. The intrigue really ramps up when Scout finds something surprising.
The gum.
Yes,
Yeah.
gum in the knothole of that tree near the Radley place. This small, anonymous gift just sparks her curiosity all over again. It hints that maybe Boo is more complex than the scary stories suggest.
It plants a seed of doubt about the monster myth.
Totally. And soon after, Scout, Jem, and Dill are deep into these elaborate games, acting out scenes from Boo's life, mixing the few facts they know with, tons of their own vivid imagination.
Kids do that, right. Fill in the blanks.
Oh, yeah. But Atticus catches them, and he does not approve. He tells them firmly to respect people's privacy. But what's really interesting is that more gifts keep showing up in that knothole, quietly hinting at Boo's kindness, his attempts to connect.
Yeah, this is where the Boo Radley mystery really deepens, I think. It shifts from just speculation to something a bit more tangible. Those gifts, the gum, later the pennies, the watch, those soap figures.
The soap figures are amazing.
Aren't they? They're crucial. Lee uses them to start humanizing Boo, challenging that monstrous image the kids built up. It suggests he's not terrifying, but maybe just lonely, gentle.
And the games the kids play.
While they're innocent, they also brilliantly show how we mythologize others. They project their fears and fantasies onto Boo, creating a story that fits their world, even if it's totally wrong. It's a really smart commentary on how we construct identities for people we don't actually know. And historically, you have to think about the 1930s South. People who were reclusive or seen as having mental health issues, they were often heavily stigmatized, isolated.
Just hidden away.
Exactly. There's this fear of difference. Communities often preferred to just lock people away, physically or socially, or just demonize them with rumors, rather than try to understand or support them. That context makes Boo's isolation, and how readily the town accepted the legends, tragically understandable.
But the gifts cut through that.
Beautifully. They're this counterpoint to the isolation and prejudice. Small, almost invisible acts of kindness. They remind me of those modern anonymous gestures, like paying it forward at a coffee shop, which was popular recently, right? Or leaving a positive note for a stranger.
Yeah, those little things.
It's that same impulse, isn't it? To connect, to give, to express humanity even from a distance. That links Boo's actions across time.
It really makes you wonder, what do we make of those quiet gestures of kindness, especially when they come from places or people we've totally misunderstood? Okay, before we hear Miss Maudie's perspective, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. So, in Chapter 5, a really wonderful and, I think, grounding influence enters Scout's life. Miss Maudie Atkinson.
Oh, Miss Maudie, yes. A key figure.
Scout starts spending a lot of time with her. She's drawn to Miss Maudie's kindness, her wisdom, and how much her values align with Atticus's. Miss Maudie, she loves her garden, she's independent, and she gives Scout these invaluable insights into Maycomb. She gently explains Boo Radley's really strict fundamentalist upbringing.
Right, the foot-washing Baptist.
Exactly, and she patiently suggests Boo isn't dangerous, just misunderstood, a victim of his family, really. But the kids, they're still caught up in their obsession. They try to deliver a note to Boo using a fishing pole.
Classic kid scheme.
Totally. And Atticus, predictably, steps in and firmly stops them, reinforces that crucial lesson about respecting boundaries and people's right to privacy, even if they seem different.
Miss Maudie is just so pivotal here. She's this vital voice of reason and tolerance in Maycomb. She actively challenges those stereotypes, those fear-mongering stories about Boo.
She offers a different way of seeing him.
Absolutely. Rooted in compassion, understanding, logic. Not the judgment and superstition that kind of dominates the town's view. It keeps building that theme of understanding versus judgment. Her ability to see Boo's humanity, despite all the gossip, is such a powerful example for Scout. And it's worth remembering, those strict, sometimes isolating religious upbringings like Boo's, they were pretty common in the 1930s South. Rigid interpretations of faith could and often did lead to social isolation for people who didn't conform, or who, like Boo, had family situations keeping them out of public life.
So Miss Maudie's open-mindedness was really something.
Remarkably progressive for her time and place. Her willingness to see past the rumors, her gentle defense of Boo, it really mirrors what we see in, say, contemporary mental health awareness movements.
Like the push for destigmatization now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Advocating for destigmatizing reclusiveness, neurodiversity, difference, encouraging understanding and acceptance over fear and prejudice. It's the same core struggle. seeing the person beyond the label.
It really makes you wonder how much understanding, if we truly embrace it, can just fundamentally replace judgment if we just give it a chance.
Okay, bracing ourselves for a bit of an escalation now. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive.
Chapter 6 definitely ramps up the tension with the Radley house incident. It's Dill's last night in Maycomb before heading home.
Always Dill pushing the boundaries.
Right. And the kids, driven by that insatiable curiosity and, let's be honest, some youthful bravado, decide to sneak onto the Radley property again. They want to peek in a window, try to see Boo, but as they're doing it, this shadow frightens them. They run off in terror, and then bang! A shotgun blast from the house.
Intense.
Super intense. In the panic, Jem gets his pants caught on the fence and has to leave him behind. But here's the really fascinating part. When he goes back later, under cover of darkness, to get them.
They're mended.
Exactly. Neatly mended and folded over the fence. A quiet but totally undeniable hint that Boo saw them and, well, showed compassion.
Yeah, it's a masterclass in building suspense around Boo. Lee uses this really high-stakes moment not just for plot, but to humanize him even more. The kids are terrified by the gun, obviously, but those mended pants, that's the strongest clue, yet he's not the monster they imagine.
He's capable of kindness.
Quiet compassion. Observation. But the escapade also really tests the kids' courage, pushes their boundaries, while also highlighting their naivety, right? They're genuinely in danger, but don't fully grasp it. It's a key moment in them understanding real risk. And historically, you have to remember, property rights and privacy were huge deals in the 1930s South. Trespassing was serious, especially in closed-off communities like Maycomb. People were fiercely protective.
So the shotgun blast wasn't entirely out of line in that context.
It was seen as a legitimate defense of property, absolutely, which makes the mended pants even more remarkable. But that kind of thrill-seeking, venturing into forbidden places, it actually has parallels today with urban exploration.
Oh, yeah, people exploring abandoned buildings and stuff.
Exactly. Exploring restricted areas, forgotten tunnels, whatever, for the excitement. And just like the Finch kids, these modern explorers often face legal trouble or real danger. It just underlines that timeless appeal and the risk of exploring the unknown, pushing boundaries.
It really makes you think about what drives us deep down to explore the unknown. Even when we know it's forbidden or risky or pushes us way out of our comfort zone. Okay, as we witness a quiet but significant turning point, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates. And we'll continue this deep dive.
Chapter 7 brings this really quiet, but I think profoundly significant moment of loss and realization, especially for Jem. The knothole gets sealed. Jem's still processing the fright from the Radley incident, right?
Wow.
And he actually confesses his fear to Scout, which is a big step for him, showing vulnerability.
Yeah, he's growing up.
And then they find more gifts in the knothole, including those amazing carved soap figures that look just like them, which really solidifies that Boo is reaching out, trying to connect.
That connection feels so fragile, though.
And then it's just severed. Ethan Radley, Boo's brother, seals the knothole with cement, claims the tree is sick.
Which Jem knows isn't true. Right. Jem, with his growing maturity, sees right through it. He understands that Nathan is deliberately, cruelly, cutting off Boo's only link to the outside world. It's this quiet but devastating loss of innocence for Jem, confronting that adult cruelty directly.
You've hit on a crucial turning point for Jem's character there. Lee uses that sealed knothole so brilliantly as a symbol. It's the end of Boo's attempts to connect, specifically with the kids who'd become his sort of accidental confidants.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And for Jem, it's a profound loss of childhood illusions. He's forced to see the harshness of the adult world, the deliberate unkindness, Jem's quiet devastation, his tears. It shows real emotional maturation. He's grappling with true injustice. And in the 1930s South, there was such a strong push for conformity, suppressing individuality, anything seen as different. Nathan Radley's action perfectly embodies that. He's isolating his brother, cutting off this harmless, if unusual, outreach.
It reflects that broader societal discomfort.
Absolutely. Discomfort with anything that deviates from the norm. And that act of sealing the knothole, restricting connection, suppressing human interaction, it finds echoes today, doesn't it? In efforts to control information or silence voices.
Like censoring accounts online or controlling narratives?
Exactly. Attempts to control communication channels for nonconformity. Powerful entities trying to control narratives or prevent connections they don't like. It's not a new phenomenon.
It really makes you ponder that specific, often painful moment when childhood innocence just smacks right into the stark reality of adult hypocrisy or sometimes just outright cruelty. Okay, as Maycomb faces a very rare event, remember too, Like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 8 brings something truly rare and memorable to Maycomb.
Snow.
A big deal in Alabama.
Huge.
An unusual snowfall, much to the absolute delight of Scout and Jem, who've never seen it. They immediately build a snowman, which hilariously ends up looking like their neighbor, Mr. Avery.
A little bit of mischief there.
Totally. But the wonder turns to chaos that night when Miss Maudie's house catches fire. And the whole community just rallies together. Amazing speed and unity, helping salvage things, keeping everyone safe. It really shows Maycomb's spirit in a crisis.
That community response is powerful.
And amidst all that chaos, Scout unknowingly gets another quiet gift of compassion. A blanket draped over her shoulders, from Boo Radley, deepening his mystery, but reinforcing that quiet, protective presence.
Lee is just brilliant here, using the unexpected snow to highlight that childhood wonder, and then immediately juxtaposing it with the very real crisis of the fire. It's not just for drama, it shows that community unity so vividly.
And the blanket.
The blanket gesture from Boo, even though Scout doesn't see it happen, is so significant. It deepens his character, this hidden source of kindness, reinforces his role as a quiet, almost guardian-like figure for the kids. He's clearly watching over them, not as a monster, but as a silent protector. And historically, snow was incredibly rare in the 1930s South. That explains the kids' pure joy. Fires, though, unfortunately, quite common. Older wooden houses, limited firefighting. A community response was absolutely essential.
People had to rely on each other.
They did. And that collective rallying from Miss Maudie, it looks a lot like modern disaster relief efforts in the U.S. Think about communities pulling together after wildfires in California, or hurricanes along the Gulf Coast.
Or crowdfunding campaigns after disasters.
Exactly. Spontaneous aid, neighbor helping neighbor, crowdfunding, volunteers. It's that same enduring spirit of collective action and compassion in crisis, a real testament to human connection.
It makes you wonder how powerfully communities really do come together in crisis, and what unexpected, quiet kindnesses can emerge from the most surprising places when we least expect them. All right, now the central conflict really starts to take shape. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. And now, Chapter 9. This is really where the central conflict of To Kill a Mockingbird clicks into gear. Scout starts facing taunts at school because Atticus has taken on the defense of Tom Robinson.
The case that changes everything.
Right. Tom, a black man, falsely accused of raping a white woman. Scout gets into a fight with Cecil Jacobs, who calls Atticus names. Later, she confronts her cousin Francis, who also insults Atticus for taking the case. And Atticus, with that characteristic calm and moral clarity, patiently explains to Scout his duty to defend Tom. He knows he'll probably lose, given the prejudice.
He's realistic about it.
Very. But he teaches her this profound lesson about integrity, about courage, doing what's right, no matter the public opinion or the personal cost.
This chapter is absolutely pivotal. Lee formally introduces the trial, and immediately that pervasive racial prejudice of the time is thrown into sharp relief. Atticus's integrity in the face of it all becomes the novel's moral cornerstone.
And Scout's fights aren't just kid stuff.
Not at all. They show her fierce loyalty to her father and her struggle to reconcile her innocent worldview with society's ugly judgments. She doesn't fully get the racial injustice yet, but she instinctively defends what feels right in her heart. It's powerful seeing a child navigate a morally compromised adult world. And historically, the context is brutal. In the 1930s, Jim Crow South, fair trials for black defendants accused of crimes against whites, virtually non-existent. The legal system was explicitly rigged.
Just stacked against them.
Completely. Atticus's courageous stand, knowing it's almost futile in the eyes of the prejudiced community, directly parallels modern legal advocates fighting for marginalized groups in the U.S. today. Think about public defenders, civil rights attorneys, nonprofit legal groups.
Doing that same kind of work.
Exactly. Often against overwhelming odds, fighting entrenched biases in courtrooms, trying to ensure everyone gets a fair defense, due process, regardless of background or perception. It's the same principled fight against injustice, echoing across decades.
It really makes you consider the immense moral courage it takes to stand for what's right, especially when doing so makes you deeply unpopular in your own community. Okay, before we uncover a surprising talent of Atticus's, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. In Chapter 10, Scout and Jem get a real revelation about Atticus. They find out about a hidden talent. Up till now, they kind of see him as, well, a bit old, maybe unremarkable, a quiet guy who reads rather than, doing rougher stuff.
Not the typical manly figure in their eyes.
Right. But their perception just shatters when a rabid dog, Tin Williamson, shows up on their street, a real threat to everyone. And Atticus, surprisingly, takes a rifle and with this incredible precision, shoots the dog. One perfect shot, revealing his past as One-Shot Finch, the best sharpshooter in the county.
A total shock to the kids.
Completely. And then Miss Maudie explains his humility, tells them he chose not to boast about it because he felt it gave him an unfair advantage over living things. It's this powerful moment redefining what strength means, valuing quiet integrity over showing off.
Yeah, this incident is such a brilliant device for Lee to explore humility, self-control, the complexity of character. Atticus's hidden skill just demolishes the kids' assumptions about him.
Strength isn't always loud.
Exactly. They learn true strength, true courage, isn't always overt or flashy. Sometimes the most remarkable qualities are quiet, used only when absolutely necessary. It demonstrates that deep moral compass, that respect for life. It really subverts typical heroic tropes. And historically, sure, marksmanship was valued in the 1930s rural South, associated with masculinity, self-reliance.
Oh.
But Atticus choosing to downplay it, that reflects his quiet rejection of what we might now call toxic masculinity, that need to constantly flaunt strength.
His humility is seen as more admirable.
Far more admirable and truly impactful. His quiet competence. It reminds me of modern leaders who prioritize substance over flash. Understated philanthropists or community organizers in the U.S. who achieve huge things without seeking personal recognition. Their actions speak louder. It shows true character is often in what you choose not to do.
It genuinely makes you wonder what hidden strengths we might overlook in others just because they don't broadcast them or because we've judged them superficially. Okay, as we prepare for a really tough lesson now, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 11 delivers a truly profound lesson, but it comes through the very difficult figure of Mrs. Dubose.
Oh, Mrs. Dubose. A complicated character.
Extremely. Jem, in this fit of rage, after Mrs. Dubose just unleashes vile insults about Atticus defending Tom Robinson, he completely destroys her prized camellia bushes. And his punishment. Atticus makes him go read to her every single day. This cantankerous old lady.
Seems like torture for a kid.
It does. But what Jem and Scout don't know during this agonizing ritual is that Mrs. Dubose is battling a severe morphine addiction, and she's fiercely determined to overcome it before she dies. After she passes away, Atticus reveals her struggle, explains her immense raw courage, her outbursts, her withdrawal symptoms. It was all part of her ferocious fight to die free.
It reframes everything.
Completely. This heartbreaking story teaches Jem and us this invaluable lesson about true bravery. It's not just about physical danger. It's about facing immense personal struggles with integrity, defiance, determination.
This chapter is absolutely critical for Lee's nuanced definition of courage. It shifts the understanding from just physical acts to the profound, often unseen strength needed to face personal struggles, especially addiction. Mrs. Dubose's story adds this significant, complex layer to the novel's moral framework. Fighting inner demons can be more courageous than any external battle. Her decision to die free, despite the pain, is an act of incredible will. And historically, morphine addiction in the 1930s was very real, but largely hidden, heavily stigmatized in the U.S. Huge silence and shame around it. People suffered in isolation, fearing judgment.
So her fight was incredibly private.
Extremely private, agonizing, and it resonates so powerfully with modern recovery stories we hear today. Think of public figures, athletes, musicians, everyday Americans who courageously share their battles with addiction now.
Helping to destigmatize it.
Exactly. Inspiring others, destigmatizing it by speaking openly. They, like Mrs. Dubose, show incredible courage not just in the fight, but in their vulnerability. In wanting to, in a sense, die on their own terms. It's a timeless testament to resilience against profound personal adversity.
This truly challenges us to rethink our definition of true bravery. It's often found not in grand gestures, but in those quiet, agonizing battles people fight every single day, unseen by most. Okay, now, as we enter part 2 of our deep dive, a whole new perspective awaits. Remember, like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our journey. We are now firmly in part 2, and chapter 12 immediately gives us this powerful shift in perspective when Calpurnia takes Scout and Jem to her church.
A really important chapter.
Atticus is away at the state legislature, so Calpurnia takes the kids with her to First Purchase African Emmy Zion Church. And it's completely eye-opening for them. They find mostly warmth, generosity, welcome, but also this brief moment of tension from a few members, like Lula, questioning why white children are there.
A reminder of the divides.
Exactly. And through this visit, Scout learns about Calpurnia's double life, how she skillfully navigates and adapts her speech, her demeanor, her code switching between the white Finch household and her own black community. It just reviews the deep complexities of identity in a divided society.
This chapter is incredibly significant. Lee uses it to lay bare the stark realities of segregation, those profound cultural differences in the 1930s South. Calpurnia's role is absolutely crucial. She's not just the housekeeper. She's a cultural bridge for Scout and Jem.
Showing them a world they'd never otherwise see.
Exactly. A world of resilience, community, totally different from theirs. And her code-switching demonstration, it subtly but powerfully shows the complexity of identity for African Americans in a society rigidly divided by race, adapting to be understood, accepted. It was a survival skill. And historically, Jim Crow laws enforce strict segregation everywhere, including churches. So Calpurnia's church offers this rare, vital glimpse into the vibrant, resilient life of Maycomb's black community, a world otherwise invisible to white kids.
And that code switching feels very relevant even now.
Oh, absolutely. Calpurnia's dual identity, her ability to adapt her language, mannerisms, behavior. It mirrors what we see constantly in contemporary society. Individuals, especially from marginalized groups, often adapt communication styles across cultural or professional contexts to navigate diverse settings.
Like in a boardroom versus a community meeting.
Precisely. It's a form of cultural intelligence and often, frankly, a necessity for belonging and navigating complex social landscapes. It's still happening all the time.
It really makes you ponder the different selves we subtly or sometimes overtly present in various social settings. How much is genuine reflection versus strategic adaptation? Okay, as new household dynamics emerge, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 13 introduces a new, and let's say somewhat jarring dynamic to the Finch house, and Alexandra arrives.
Oh boy, Aunt Alexandra?
Atticus's formidable sister moves in, supposedly to provide a feminine influence for Scout, and she immediately starts pushing traditional Southern values, social graces, constantly urging Scout to act like a lady, trying to mold her into this conventional Southern girl role that Scout just fundamentally resists.
Scout's not having it.
Not at all. Alexandra puts huge emphasis on family heritage, pedigree, believing it determines your worth, which completely clashes with Scout's nature and Atticus's belief in individual merit over lineage. Her presence creates immediate, palpable tension.
Lee uses Aunt Alexandra so explicitly here to explore those rigid gender roles and societal expectations of the 1930s South. Alexandra's arrival just dramatically highlights the immense pressure to conform, especially for girls like Scout.
Her insistence on acting like a lady.
It's not just person preference. It underscores those profound societal constraints on individual expression, particularly for women back then. It shows how deeply ingrained these structures were. And historically, the 1930s South really idealized this specific type of traditional femininity demure, focused on domesticity, social graces, maintaining the family image.
Which often clashed with individuals like Scout.
Sharply. Scout's resistance to Alexandra's attempts to feminize her. It directly mirrors contemporary gender nonconformity movements in the U.S. Think about the push today for gender-neutral fashion, or the increasing acceptance of non-traditional gender roles.
Challenging those same expectations.
Exactly. These movements advocate for individual freedom of expression, allowing people to define themselves beyond rigid, prescriptive molds. It's that timeless struggle for self-determination playing out again.
It really makes you ask what deeply ingrained societal expectations we still challenge today, and how much progress we've truly made in defining ourselves beyond those sometimes stifling traditional roles. Okay, as family dynamics get tested even further, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 14 sees family tensions rising even higher, but we also get the unexpected return of Dill. The friction between Scout, Jem, and Aunt Alexandra just keeps escalating. The kids resist her attempts to change them. And then, this surprising kind of heartwarming twist, Dill runs away from home in Mississippi and is found hiding under Scout's bed.
Poor Dill. Always searching for belonging.
Exactly. He's desperate for a stable home, unconditional acceptance, clearly not finding it where he came from. And Atticus, with that characteristic compassion, lets him stay, despite Alexandra's initial disapproval. It just reinforces the Finch household's warmth and commitment to caring for those in need.
This chapter really deepens that theme of belonging, doesn't it? Showing how fundamental it is. Dill running away isn't just a kid's escapade. It reflects that profound universal need for family, stability, unconditional understanding.
His vulnerability is palpable.
It really is. It highlights the fragility of childhood, the importance of a safe, loving home. It emphasizes that family isn't just blood. It's where you feel you truly belong. And historically, runaways were sadly common during the Great Depression across the U.S. Economic hardship, family stress, it pushed households to the brink, leading many young people to leave unstable homes searching for something better or just refuge.
Dill's story feels very real in that context.
It does, and it parallels situations for youth today seeking refuge from difficult homes. It's still a critical concern, a focus of child welfare initiatives, foster care, homeless youth programs across the nation. They work to provide safe havens and support for vulnerable kids, recognizing that need for belonging is just as urgent now.
It truly makes you consider that universal, undeniable human need for belonging and acceptance, and how profoundly that shapes our actions, our choices, our search for home. And now, get ready for one of the novel's most iconic and incredibly tense moments. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Okay, here's where it gets absolutely just heart-poundingly tense. Chapter 15, The Mob at the Jail. A mob of angry, prejudiced men from Maycomb, fueled by hate and probably alcohol, confronts Atticus outside the county jail.
Their intention is terrifyingly clear.
To lynch Tom Robinson before the trial. Take justice into their own hands. Atticus stands there alone, facing them down with this quiet, unwavering courage. It's incredible. But then Scout, Jem, and Dill, who secretly followed Atticus, unexpectedly intervene. And Scout, with her innocent, naive conversation, she just cuts through the mob's hate.
She talks directly to Mr. Cunningham.
Yes. Appeals to his humanity. Her simple questions, recognizing him as an individual, not just part of a mob, actually shame them. They disperse. It's this astounding display of innocence against pure hatred.
It's undeniably one of Lee's most powerful scenes. It vividly shows the raw, unexpected power of innocence to diffuse hatred, mob violence. Atticus's quiet courage is extraordinary, but Scout's unwitting yet profoundly effective intervention that highlights the transformative power of simple humanity, childlike purity.
Individual courage meets innocence.
And it prevails against this tide of collective prejudice and terrifying mob mentality, against all odds. And historically, lynchings were a brutal, horrifying, common reality in the 1930s South. Extrajudicial killings, often public, meant to terrorize and control black populations, stark reflections of rampant racial violence and mob mentality.
Scout's intervention feels almost like de-escalation.
It really does. It recalls modern de-escalation tactics used by community leaders, law enforcement, activists across the U.S. Think of community mediators today, working to resolve conflicts peacefully by introducing a human element, finding common ground, reminding people of their shared humanity.
Breaking through the tension.
Exactly. Her innocent questions, recognizing Mr. Cunningham, force him and the others to momentarily step outside their group identity and reconnect with their own individuality, their own humanity. It works.
It makes you wonder what truly simple acts of courage, or even just innocent questioning and recognizing another's humanity, can do to disrupt those larger, more menacing forces of hatred and violence. Okay, as the town converges on the courthouse for the trial, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 16 powerfully sets the stage as the trial finally begins. The whole town of Maycomb is buzzing, converging on the courthouse. Anticipation, morbid curiosity. It's deeply divisive. Scout, Jem, and Dill, always the observers, sneak into the colored balcony, the segregated upper section.
A crucial vantage point.
From there, they see the town's stark racial divide laid bare. They witness the ingrained prejudices, the rigid loyalties defining Maycomb's social structure. And down below, Atticus quietly prepares to defend Tom against overwhelming prejudice, knowing the immense challenge, but committed to justice.
Lee masterfully sets the stage here, immediately emphasizing that systemic racism. The courtroom's architecture itself, with those separate, unequal balconies, visually reinforces the deep racial divides, the community's split loyalties.
It's a metaphor for the justice system itself.
Absolutely. Inherently biased, designed to uphold white supremacy. Watching from the colored balcony gives the kids this unique, uncomfortable perspective on their town's deepest flaws. And historically, courtrooms across the 1930s South were deeply segregated, mirroring Jim Crow laws everywhere. Black defendants faced white juries, white judges, almost invariably prejudiced. A fair trial was the exception, not the rule.
The atmosphere must have been intense.
Intense public scrutiny, prejudgment, spectacle. It echoes the pressure and media frenzy in high-profile cases in the U.S. today, doesn't it? Public opinion, fueled by media, social commentary, can sway proceedings, shape perceptions of guilt or innocence long before a verdict. It shows how justice can be influenced not just by facts, but by the social climate and bias.
It truly makes you ponder the immense tangible weight of history and ingrained prejudice that can just loom over a courtroom, threatening the very ideal of justice. Okay, as the first testimony begins, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 17 brings us the testimony of Bob Ewell. Highly anticipated and pretty much what you'd expect. Ewell takes the stand and immediately starts spinning this narrative to incriminate Tom Robinson, painting him as a violent criminal. But during Atticus's meticulous, calm cross-examination,
The story starts to unravel. Quickly.
yes, Atticus skillfully exposes inconsistencies, contradictions, outright lies. He strongly hints at Ewell's dishonesty, his deep-seated prejudice, and raises that chilling possibility that Ewell himself abused his daughter, Mayella.
This testimony is Lee's sharp critique of how unreliable prejudiced testimony is. She shows how truth gets twisted, obscured, manipulated within a biased system, especially when prejudice runs so deep. Ewell embodies that moral decay that comes with social standing based purely on race.
He knows he can get away with it.
Exactly. His willingness to lie under oath, even sacrificing his daughter's well-being and a man's life, underscores the profound corruption unchecked prejudice breeds. And historically, false accusations against black men by white accusers were tragically common in the Jim Crow South, often fueled by stereotypes, desperation, a desire to maintain racial control. These accusations frequently led to swift, unjust convictions with little regard for truth.
It sounds chillingly similar to some things today.
It does. Ewell's testimony parallels modern cases of perjury, or instances where people fabricate evidence or lie in court to avoid accountability or get a desired outcome. Think of recent high-profile fraud trials or legal battles in the U.S. where fabricated evidence and deceit were exposed. It starkly shows manipulating truth for personal gain, especially when shielded by privilege, is a timeless, dangerous problem.
It truly makes you ask how frighteningly easily truth itself can be distorted and weaponized, especially when prejudice is allowed to powerfully influence perceptions in legal proceedings. Okay, as another crucial and complex witness takes the stand, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. In Chapter 18, we hear the very difficult testimony of Mayella Ewell. She takes the stand, tearfully accusing Tom Robinson of attacking and beating her. But as Atticus gently, calmly questions her, a much more complex, tragic picture emerges.
Her story starts to falter under his questioning.
It does. Atticus deftly highlights her profound loneliness, her isolation, her palpable fear of her abusive father, Bob Ewell. It becomes increasingly clear Mayella is a victim herself of poverty abuse caught in this desperate situation. Her accusation against Tom might be a coerced attempt to cover up a darker truth about her own life.
This is such a poignant, ethically complex moment. Lee portrays Mayella not just as an accuser, but as a victim in her own right. Victim of poverty, abuse, Maycomb's suffocating pressures. This nuanced portrayal complicates her role, forces us and the jury to look beyond simple accusations, to see the layers of truth, suffering, coercion. She's trapped. Historically, poor white women in the 1930s South had incredibly limited agency, options, social mobility, often subjected to patriarchal control, few avenues for escape or support, pressured by family loyalty or societal norms to maintain a facade.
So her situation feels very real for the time.
Very real. Her plight, her isolation, the evident coercion, her need to stick to her father's story. It powerfully mirrors contemporary discussions of coercion and domestic abuse cases in the U.S. Victims pressured or forced to make false statements or retract true ones out of fear.
Which is still a focus of advocacy campaigns.
Absolutely. Working to identify and support victims who can't speak clearly due to fear, manipulation, control by an abuser. It highlights that continuing pervasive issue where victims are forced into untenable positions.
It truly makes you ponder the hidden complexities and deep vulnerabilities of accusers. How much unseen pain, coercion, or desperate circumstance might lie beneath the surface of a legal case, challenging all our assumptions. Now we finally hear from the accused himself. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 19 brings us to the crucial testimony of Tom Robinson. Tom takes the stand and calmly, sincerely gives his version of events. He explains he simply helped Mayella with chores out of kindness, something he often did for others.
Just being neighborly.
Exactly. He recounts how Mayella initiated contact, pulled him inside, and then tried to kiss him. Startled and acutely aware of the extreme danger for a black man with a white woman in the Jim Crow South.
He had to get out of there fast.
He fled, fearing for his life. Despite his clear honesty, his sincere demeanor, the believability of his testimony, the jury's deep-seated prejudice is just painfully evident. His truth, however rational, is dismissed purely because of his race, sealing his fate.
This chapter is just heartbreakingly powerful. It underscores systemic racism at its most insidious. Lee shows us a man speaking his truth, rational, believable, humane, yet utterly dismissed by the system because of his race. This is the tragic, infuriating heart of the novel's critique. Truth is irrelevant against institutionalized prejudice.
His kindness becomes his undoing.
Precisely. Because it's misinterpreted through that lens of racial bias. And historically, black testimony was almost universally devalued in 1930 Southern courts. A white person's word, especially a white woman's, nearly always trumped a black man's, regardless of evidence. It cemented a rigged system.
And we still see echoes of this.
Tragically, yes. Tom's situation mirrors modern wrongful convictions still coming to light across the U.S. Numerous exonerations, often via DNA evidence, expose profound racial bias in the justice system, revealing how many, like Tom, were unjustly imprisoned due to prejudice, mistaken identity, manufactured evidence, not facts. It reminds us the fight for equitable justice is far from over.
It truly makes you ask what terrifyingly happens when truth itself, however clear, just isn't enough to overcome pervasive prejudice in a rigged system. As Atticus delivers his final impassioned plea for justice, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 20 gives us Atticus's powerful, deeply moving closing argument. He delivers this passionate, eloquent plea to the jury. Masterful. He urges them to see past their ingrained prejudices, uphold the fundamental principles of justice, emphasizes Tom's innocence with clear logic.
He appeals directly to their moral duty.
He does, highlighting the glaring inconsistencies, the lies in the Yule's testimony. More profoundly, he appeals to their collective conscience, reminding them that in a courtroom, all men should be equal, regardless of race, that a man's life hangs in the balance.
This is truly the narrative's moral and rhetorical climax. Lee uses Atticus's plea not just as a legal argument, but as this powerful sermon on human decency, equality, the rule of law, even facing overwhelming bias. His speech is an act of profound moral courage.
He knows it's likely lost, but he fights anyway.
Fiercely. On principle. For truth, for human dignity. It's a testament to the power of one voice speaking truth to power. And historically, such passionate, principled appeals were incredibly rare, often futile, in 1930s Southern courts where bias predetermined outcomes. But Atticus's speech resonates with modern calls for judicial reform across the U.S.
Like the push for equitable sentencing today.
Exactly. Or addressing implicit bias in courtrooms, movements for truly blind justice where race, status, opinion don't influence verdicts. His words articulate a timeless ideal of justice society still strives for, recognizing justice for all is often an aspiration, not a given. It requires constant vigilance.
It makes you ponder the sheer, unyielding power of a single voice fighting for justice and truth against what seem like overwhelming, insurmountable odds. The moment of truth arrives, the verdict is in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 21 delivers the devastating verdict. Despite Atticus's compelling argument, the clear evidence, the undeniable truth of Tom's innocence, the jury returns a guilty verdict.
Crushing. Utterly crushing.
It doesn't just impact Tom, it profoundly shatters Jem's youthful faith in the justice system. He's forced to confront the harsh reality of prejudice, the fundamental unfairness. Scout, too, observes the deep racial divide in the courtroom, the despair on the black side, the hard faces on the white side, and truly grasps the depth of prejudice permeating Maycomb. Justice is not blind.
This verdict is brutal, yet absolutely essential to the novel. Lee unflinchingly exposes the harsh reality of systemic racism, its devastating impact on individuals and on the innocence of those who witness it. For Jem, it's a profound loss of innocence. His idealized view of justice is shattered, replaced by bitter cynicism.
And for Scout,
it's a critical step into a darker, more complex understanding of the world, highlighting the painful truth that justice isn't always blind, but often prejudiced, deeply flawed. And historically, this verdict reflects the tragic, accurate reality of the 1930s South's rigged legal system. Black defendants almost never received fair trials against white accusers. The system upheld white supremacy. Outcomes were predetermined by race, not evidence.
And this connects to modern issues too, right?
Yeah, directly. It parallels contemporary discussions of jury bias, systemic racial disparities in the U.S. justice system. Ongoing studies revealed disparities in convictions, sentencing, jury selection. Efforts to understand implicit bias. It starkly shows the specter of racial prejudice continues to haunt justice systems today, despite reforms.
It truly makes you ask what happens, fundamentally, when the very systems we're taught to trust, the pillars of society, fail us so profoundly and so explicitly. As the community reacts to this devastating blow, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. In Chapter 22, we see the immediate, somber aftermath of the trial's verdict. Jem is absolutely crushed, grappling intensely with the injustice, struggling to reconcile it with his belief in fairness. Atticus, though clearly pained, remains stoic, embodying this quiet resilience.
Holding it together as always.
And then, this quiet, incredibly powerful gesture. The Black community of Maycomb sends an abundance of food chickens, baked goods, vegetables to the Finch house, silently thanking Atticus for his valiant, principled efforts, despite the outcome.
It's a moment of profound connection and gratitude.
Yeah.
This chapter beautifully contrasts the despair of the verdict with the resilience and quiet strength of the Black community. Lee highlights their collective respect, their deep gratitude for Atticus's moral courage, his unwavering effort, even in a predictable loss. It shows standing for what's right, even if you lose the legal battle, still holds immense moral value, earns profound respect. Historically, Black communities in the 1930s often supported white allies quietly, through gestures like this, given the risks of open defiance or praise. Sending food was a deeply meaningful expression of solidarity, collective strength, mutual aid against adversity.
And that kind of support still happens.
Absolutely. It mirrors contemporary grassroots support and community organizing for activists fighting for justice across the U.S. Think of community fundraisers for legal aid or resources for families impacted by systemic injustice. These quiet collective actions show that enduring spirit of mutual aid, strength, and support for those bravely challenging injustice.
It makes you ponder the quiet, powerful acts of solidarity that emerge after significant losses, proving that even in defeat, profound connection, gratitude, and resilience can flourish. As Jem wrestles with the meaning of justice itself, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 23 brings these poignant reflections on justice, especially for Jem. Atticus, ever patient, carefully explains to a heartbroken, disillusioned Jem why the jury convicted Tom, citing the entrenched racism, fear, the social structures that swayed them.
Trying to help him make sense of the senseless.
Right, and Jem, wrestling with this profound cynicism, starts questioning the very foundations of society, the fairness of the world. Scout, interestingly, manages to retain a flicker of hope, clinging to the belief that justice might eventually prevail.
This chapter really keenly explores that tension between youthful idealism and harsh reality. Jem's growing cynicism, his questioning of structures, marks a significant step in his painful maturation. He's losing that naivety, confronting ugly truths. His struggle to understand why people choose injustice despite clear evidence is universal to growing up.
Scout holds on to hope, though.
She does. Maybe because she's younger or hasn't fully internalized the depth of the systemic rot yet. It's a fascinating contrast. And historically, the 1930s South's legal system was built on racial inequality, designed to uphold white supremacy. Fair outcomes for Black defendants were virtually impossible. Jem's disillusionment, his questioning of this flawed system, it directly mirrors contemporary youth activism across the U.S.
Like the student-led protests we see.
Exactly. Social justice movements, advocacy campaigns led by young people who, recognizing injustice, often become the most vocal, passionate advocates for systemic change. They, like Jem, are often unwilling to accept the status quo, demanding a more equitable world.
It truly makes you ask how we, individually and collectively, reconcile our idealism, our belief in fairness, with the harsh, often disappointing realities of the world we actually live in. As hypocrisy takes center stage at a tea party, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 24 finds Scout reluctantly attending Aunt Alexandra's missionary tea party.
Oh, the missionary circle. Brace yourself.
Right. Scout's there with Maycomb's prominent white ladies discussing abstract charity, missionary work far away. But their conversations quickly reveal this profound hypocrisy. They simultaneously express deeply prejudiced views about the local Black community laziness, ungratefulness. And then the gathering is brutally shaken by the news of Tom Robinson's death in prison.
The reality crashes in.
And in that moment, Miss Maudie steps up powerfully, defending Atticus's integrity, the stand he took, subtly challenging the lady's superficial morality.
This chapter is such a sharp, damning critique of societal hypocrisy, the limits of performative morality. Lee masterfully exposes the disconnect between these women's professed Christian values and their actual behavior. concerned for distant people while callously ignoring or perpetuating injustice right at home.
Tom's death highlights their moral blindness.
Starkly. It highlights their empathy gap. They're more concerned with appearances, abstract charity, than immediate local injustice. And historically, missionary societies, women's clubs of the 1930s South were common, often focused on civilizing distant populations while ignoring or contributing to local racial injustice. This performative charity, divorced from real empathy, it mirrors contemporary performative activism in the U.S.
Like slacktivism critique.
Exactly. Individuals or organizations posting about causes online, superficial gestures to appear virtuous, but little meaningful action or self-reflection. A disconnect between declared values and actual impact. It's a timeless human tendency, Project Virtue. Ignore local failings.
It makes you ponder the profound, often uncomfortable, disconnect between professed values and actual behavior, especially regarding social justice and genuine empathy. As Maycomb reacts, or fails to react, to a tragedy, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. In Chapter 25, we deal with the shocking reality of Tom's death and Maycomb's chilling response. We learn Tom was shot and killed trying to escape prison, supposedly climbing the fence. This deeply unjust event sparks only brief discussion, then largely chilling dismissal and apathy among white Maycomb.
Moving on.
Scout reflects on the town's indifference, realizing how easily they dismiss a black man's life, viewing it as inevitable. The unfairness of the system that killed him is just accepted. His death is treated like a minor inconvenience, not a tragedy.
This chapter just heartbreakingly underscores the dehumanization of black lives in the Jim Crow South. Lee highlights the town's shocking apathy, their collective turning a blind eye, their ready acceptance of the official story, however unlikely. Tom's death, framed as inevitable, it's a searing symbol of the ingrained prejudice governing Maycomb. A black man's life deemed expendable. And historically, prison violence against black inmates, deaths during escape attempts were tragically common in the 1930s U.S., especially the South. Often ignored, downplayed, accepted without question by white communities and authorities. Systemic indifference reflected acceptance of racial violence, lack of accountability.
And that indifference feels familiar today, too.
It does. The town's apathy powerfully recalls contemporary debates about police violence, lack of accountability in the justice system, widespread protests, ongoing struggles over unaddressed cases of violence against marginalized communities. The fight for recognition, justice, accountability when official responses are dismissive or systemic issues ignored. It shows society's capacity to turn a blind eye remains a powerful, dangerous force.
It makes you ask what it truly means, what the consequences are when a society collectively turns a blind eye to injustice, letting it fester, claim lies, and perpetuate deep-seated wrongs. As contradictions surface right there in the classroom, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 26 reveals more unsettling hypocrisy, this time at school. Scout's teacher, Miss Gates, condemns prejudice in history lessons, criticizing Hitler's treatment of Jews in Germany, lectures on democracy, equality.
Teaching the right values on paper.
Exactly. But Scout is deeply confused, disturbed, when she later overhears Miss Gates outside the courthouse expressing racist sentiments about Maycomb's black community supporting local segregation. This blatant contradiction between taught values and lived actions intensifies Scout's moral confusion. And Jem, still raw from the trial, asks her not to discuss it, unable to bear more disillusionment.
This is a crucial, uncomfortable moment. Lee directly exposes that glaring, painful contradiction between taught values and lived actions. It's powerful hypocrisy, especially in education, where ideals are preached but not practiced. Ms. Gates condemning injustice abroad while blind to complicit in at home. It deepens Scout's moral understanding, forces her to see what's preached isn't always practiced, the danger of selective empathy. And historically, 1930s Southern schools often taught idealized values, democracy, freedom while actively upholding segregation, prejudice, profound cognitive dissonance between theory and practice. The teacher's hypocrisy mirrors contemporary contradictions in the U.S.
Like debates over performative DEI.
Exactly. Organizations investing in programs that look inclusive, but underlying cultures, practices, power structures remain unchanged. Superficial transformation, not genuine. It highlights that gap between professed values and actual behavior is a persistent societal challenge.
This truly challenges us to consider where we might see similar hypocrisy in our own lives or in society, that uncomfortable gap between what's said and what's actually done. As a chilling new threat starts to emerge, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 27 builds this undeniable, terrifying tension as Bob Yule's revenge starts to unfold. Ewell, enraged and humiliated by Atticus during the trial, begins harassing those connected to the case. He bothers Helen Robinson, Tom's widow, on her way to work, taunts her,
making her life miserable.
and he attempts to break into Judge Taylor's home. Atticus, characteristically calm, initially downplays these threats, thinking Ewell's just blowing off steam. But these escalating incidents build chilling suspense. Halloween is approaching. Ewell's vindictiveness hasn't subsided. It's growing more dangerous.
Lee expertly designs this chapter to build intense, palpable suspense, showcasing Ewell's escalating vindictiveness, the dangerous, lingering effects of the trial's injustice. These incidents aren't random. They show injustice, even when legally over, casts a long, dark, violent shadow. Evil and retribution can persist, unchecked. Ewell's actions are a direct consequence of the system failing to hold him truly accountable. And historically, retaliation against black families or white allies was common, often unchecked, in the 1930s South. Defying the racial status quo meant risking harassment, intimidation, violence. Ewell's actions directly parallel contemporary hate crimes across the U.S.
Motivated by prejudice, aiming to terrorize.
Exactly. Think of reported spikes in targeted harassment, violence against minority groups, individuals singled out for race, religion, orientation, identity. It proves such vengeful acts remain a potent, insidious threat today, rooted in prejudice and a desire for control.
It truly makes you ask how long the dark shadow of injustice and unchecked malice can truly extend, even long after a verdict is rendered and the official proceedings are supposedly over. Now, brace yourselves for the shocking climax of the novel. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Okay, here it is. The narrative reaches its shocking, violent climax in Chapter 28, the Halloween attack, Halloween night. Scout and Jem are walking home through the dark woods after a school pageant, still in costumes. Bob Ewell ambushes them.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
He attacks them violently, intending to harm, maybe kill them, fueled by his consuming rage, revenge against Atticus, but then, out of nowhere, from the shadows, Boo Radley intervenes.
The moment we've been waiting for, in a way.
He heroically saves the children, fights off Ewell, ultimately killing him in the struggle, preventing a horrific tragedy. Jem's arm is broken in the attack, echoing the novel's very first line, bringing it full circle, revealing the true catalyst.
This dramatic climax isn't just thrilling plot. It's the profound resolution of the Boo Radley arc. Lee reveals his ultimate heroism, transforming him from figure of fear, mystery, legend, into a compassionate, protective, brave figure. His act of saving the kids ties directly to that central Mockingbird symbol of innocence.
He's the Mockingbird.
He is, reinforcing he's a gentle, harmless creature who must be protected, despite appearances or rumors. It's the ultimate twist, proving the kids' fears unfounded, flipping their perception completely. And historically, vigilante violence, like Ewell's brutal attack, was a very real risk in the 1930s South, especially for those challenging the status quo. Spontaneous, brutal violence was a constant undercurrent. Boo's unexpected rescue mirrors modern stories of unlikely heroes in the U.S.
Like bystanders stopping assaults.
Exactly. Viral accounts of ordinary, unassuming people stepping in, protecting vulnerable individuals, often at great personal risk. These real-life events show true heroism can emerge from unexpected places, defying stereotypes, reminding us courage can come from anywhere.
It truly makes you ponder where true heroism can actually be found and how often it profoundly defies our expectations, emerging from the most unlikely and surprising sources. As the mystery finally unravels completely, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. In Chapter 29, after that terrifying attack, the mystery of Boo Radley is finally profoundly revealed. Scout is sitting in Jem's room, recounting the night's events, and she finally meets Boo Radley face to face.
The actual Arthur Radley.
Yes. And to her surprise, he's not the monster of her nightmares. He's kind, incredibly pale, painfully shy, quiet, gentle. As she recounts the attack to Sheriff Tate and Atticus, piecing it together, she fully understands Boo's crucial life-saving role. It's this moment of deep emotional impact, profound empathy for Scout, seeing him for the first time as a person.
This scene marks that complete, satisfying transformation of Boo from mythologized fear figure into a human being. Lee uses it to powerfully reinforce themes of empathy, understanding, looking beyond appearances woven throughout the novel. Scout seeing him not as Boo Radley the legend, but Arthur Radley, the quiet, benevolent person. It signifies her ultimate moral growth.
Her acceptance of difference.
Exactly. It's the culmination of Atticus's lessons. She can finally walk in someone else's shoes. And, historically, the 1930s South strongly stigmatized recluses, anyone not fitting rigid norms, pushing them to the fringes, into isolation. Boo's life of isolation driven by family, decades of gossip, fear. It's a testament to that societal prejudice. Wu's reveal Scout's empathy parallels contemporary stories of misunderstood individuals in the U.S.
Like advocacy for neurodivergent acceptance today.
Precisely. Working to destigmatize conditions leading to social differences, encouraging society to understand, embrace unique ways of being, rather than fearing or isolating them. It's that timeless call to compassion.
It truly makes you ask what deep-seated misconceptions we might unknowingly hold about those we deem different or other, and how much richer our world could be if we just let those preconceived ideas go. Now, a difficult ethical choice must be made. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll continue our deep dive. Chapter 30 deals with this quiet but deeply significant ethical dilemma, the cover-up. Sheriff Tate and Atticus have this tense but ultimately understanding debate about revealing Boo's role in Bob Ewell's death.
What's the official story going to be?
Exactly. Tate, understanding the impact public scrutiny would have on the shy, reclusive Boo, insists vehemently that Ewell simply fell on his knife, protecting Boo from the unbearable limelight, the legal process that would surely destroy him, and Scout, showing her profound moral growth, agrees with Tate, likening revealing Boo's heroism to killing a mockingbird, destroying an innocent, benevolent creature for no good reason.
This moment powerfully reinforces that core mockingbird motif, bringing it full circle. Lee highlights the difficult ethical choice. Protect innocence, even if it means bending the strict letter of the law, obscuring the precise truth. It's a moral compromise, but one made out of compassion, understanding vulnerability, a pragmatic desire to protect someone fragile and good.
It questions what justice really means when it collides with mercy.
It does. And historically, the 1930s South often engaged in selective justice, frequently avoiding prosecuting white men for violence if it serves a perceived community good, protected reputations, or, like here, protected a vulnerable individual. Tate's unofficial cover-up, while morally ambiguous legally, reflects a pragmatic desire to avoid chaos, protect a citizen, restore quiet order, even by bending the official narrative.
This kind of selective truth-telling, does it have modern parallels?
I think so. It recalls contemporary debates over whistleblower protection in the U.S., cases shielding anonymous heroes who expose wrongdoing, often by letting them remain unnamed to protect them from retribution. Recognizing sometimes pursuing a larger good requires deviating from standard procedures or strategic silence.
It truly makes you ponder the profound ethical dilemmas of protecting innocence at the cost of strict truth, and where that delicate line should ultimately be drawn when compassion and justice seem to conflict. And now, for Scout's final transformative lesson in the book. Remember, like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and we'll conclude our deep dive. Finally, Chapter 31 brings us Scout's final and maybe her most profound lesson. She quietly walks Boo home in silence, a powerful act of companionship understanding. Then she stands on his porch, looking out at Maycomb from his perspective.
Seeing the world through his eyes, literally.
Yes, seeing the familiar streets, houses, lives with fresh eyes. It's this moment of profound empathy, revelation, seeing her world, its complexities, hidden corners, through his isolated viewpoint. She reflects on Atticus's lessons, finally fully embracing empathy, internalizing that wisdom of walking in someone else's shoes. This quiet personal moment signifies her complete moral growth, her newfound understanding of the complex, unseen lives around her, bringing her journey full circle.
This powerful conclusion truly epitomizes Scout's remarkable moral growth and the novel's central themes. Lee masterfully ties together empathy, innocence, understanding, showing how Scout matured from curious, sometimes naive child into a young woman deeply comprehending human experience, the importance of compassion, even for the marginalized or misunderstood. It's the culmination of her entire journey. Demonstrating true wisdom comes from perspective. And historically, the 1930s South, with its rigid structures, prejudices, rarely valued cross-perspective empathy. Scout's ability to transcend her own view, truly see the world from Boo's perspective, makes her growth a hopeful, inspiring outlier in that context. This final lesson aligns perfectly with contemporary global empathy initiatives seeking to bridge divides, foster understanding.
Like educational programs teaching perspective taking.
Exactly. Or community initiatives encouraging dialogue between different groups. It's a timeless lesson, continually relevant, reminding us that truly seeing another person is the first step towards a more compassionate, just world.
What does it truly mean to see the world through someone else's eyes? And how does the profound shift in perspective ultimately change us, transforming our understanding of everything? So we've journeyed through Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird chapter by chapter. We've watched Scout Finch's childhood adventures illuminate these deeper, often uncomfortable truths about justice, prejudice, and, well, the incredible power of empathy. It's a story that just continues to resonate so profoundly, doesn't it? Because its timeless lessons feel as vital today as they were back in Maycomb.
Absolutely. This deep dive into Maycomb really shows us that the line between, say, hero and outcast, or between truth and perception, it's often drawn not by objective reality, but by the community's willingness or unwillingness to truly see and understand. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. What mockingbirds in our own world, in our own communities, do we unknowingly protect? Or perhaps, more disturbingly, inadvertently silence by the stories we choose to believe, or maybe the perspectives we stubbornly refuse to even consider?
The powerful question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Harper Lee's timeless classic. We really hope it encourages you to continue exploring complex narratives like this one and connecting them to your own understanding of the world, maybe challenging your own perspectives along the way. Until next time.